What's up, guys? It's Nick here. Welcome back to an episode of my top 100 games list. In the last episode, we did games from 40 to 31, and now in this episode, we're going to be doing games from 30 to 21. So let's start things off with number 30. Number 30. Now, one of the most popular games of all time is Tetris, and it's a fun game. It's very simple. You're just stacking blocks and clearing lines, and it's fun and addicting and just overall a good time. And my favorite version of Tetris is Tetris Effect. Now, Tetris Effect is probably best played on a VR headset, whether it be the PlayStation VR, the Oculus Quest 2, or PC VR, or whatever it may be. It's really the best way to experience, as Tetris Effect is so atmospheric. It's honestly one of the most beautiful Tetris games, as each level you go through is a different theme and has different sound effects and music, and it's just so mesmerizing but also just so beautiful, and it's honestly just beautiful looking at it. And playing it in VR is just so, you're so into the game, and your performance is even better at times as you're so focused on the blocks, and the music and the sound effects really help with kind of being in that like environment of that level, as well as just being able to concentrate, as it's just very zen, honestly, or at least most of the levels are. And it's honestly just a lot of fun. It's just your classic Tetris. You hold the blocks, you don't need or want to reserve, and then you just play Tetris. You rack up combos sometimes, you clear lines, and it's honestly a beautiful game, Tetris Effect, and it has a really good soundtrack, really good visuals. It's fun, addicting, it's very zen. It's honestly a game you can just pick up and play, and it's really fun. But at the end of the day, it's really just Tetris, but it's kind of Tetris on steroids, really, where it's just so much visuals to it, and it's so eye candy kind of, and it really does a great job of just making you focus on the game and kind of block out everything else, and why it's perfect for the VR, honestly, and the best way to play it. And the only reason it's at number 30 really is just because at the end of the day, it's really just Tetris. There's nothing more to it. There's nothing really added other than like the zone feature, which allows you to kind of freeze time and get crazy lines cleared. Although they don't really count towards your lines cleared, they add it as like a bonus points kind of thing. And I feel like that was a cool feature, as especially when you click the zone button and you get into the zone, you kind of rack up a bunch of points, but like also the music kind of dulls down, and you get these other sound effects of that keep highering in pitch depending on how many lines you clear in that zone timer, which is pretty cool. But other than that, it's really just Tetris, and it's not really a bad thing though. That's why it deserved its spot at number 30. Number 29. Now, there hasn't really been a lot of 3D platformers recently. The one that usually comes to mind is Super Mario Odyssey, but there was actually a game that came out pretty much a month before Super Mario Odyssey came out, and it was really hard for me to decide whether I liked this game better or Super Mario Odyssey better. But I decided to go with this game mainly because of its charm, really, and that game is A Hat in Time. Now, it was a really close call of either A Hat in Time or Super Mario Odyssey, but as both games are really good, both of them are 3D platformers, both of them have hats, and they're honestly both really good games. But I decided to give it to Hat in Time just for its charm, and as well as its overall kind of fluid, as I feel like Super Mario Odyssey didn't really have as much inspiration or creativity as you have kingdoms like the Cloud Kingdom or the Ruined Kingdom that really don't have much use to them, as well as there's a lot of moons that they just kind of give out to you and are just free pretty much, and are just there really, and some of them really don't require exploration or other stuff, and they're just there to kind of make you happy and feel achieved even though you really didn't do much. But I feel like Hat in Time really has a lot more to it in the sense of you feel more accomplished. You feel like each hourglass you collect, you achieved, and you feel like you actually accomplished things and you actually deserve that hourglass. And I feel like most of the levels, although not all of them, are really good, especially the DLC as well. Like the Metro world was probably one of my favorites, as you just went through this like subway or this metro area, and honestly it's really cool, and everything is like cats, and it's so charming and so like cool and creative and beautiful colors and design and visual, and I absolutely love and adore it. I also love the badge system as well, as you can equip badges to Hat Girl and they can change how you how your gameplay is, especially the badge where you don't bonk, as I literally hate bonking, and that was one of my least favorite things to do in Super Mario Odyssey, when you're like really close to an edge and yet you just bonk your head on it and you're like, damn it, pretty much. But with a Hat in Time, there's a badge where you can actually get rid of the bonk, and you're also able to walk up walls a little bit, unlike Mario. And I just found honestly the movement to be a bit better in Hat in Time, as you're able to kind of just dash, and you're able to dive, and you're able to cancel your dive, as well as run up walls for a little bit, and you can wall jump and do kind of everything Mario can do, but I feel like it's just more fluid, and I feel like the no bonk badge is honestly what made the movement a bit better than Odyssey is. Odyssey, it's really just throwing your cap, jumping on your cap, and then throwing your cap and diving again constantly over and over again. And it's cool the first time or the first few times, but then it's just repetitive after that. Anyway, A Hat in Time though is really good. I love the movement, I love the worlds, I love the characters, the exploration, the humor, the DLC, everything. It's really just charming and good and fun, and it's just so cool too. And I love the exploration as well. Each world is pretty big, or most of them are pretty big, and most of them allow you to explore and to go around and find collectibles and all this crazy stuff. And the other levels that are a little bit more linear, where it's kind of a mission you have to do, they're also pretty good, but I don't think as good as the open world segments. I also really like the time sphere stages, or whatever they were called, where you're like in this kind of like Super Mario Sunshine type of level, where you're platforming and going through like this white space, and it's honestly probably my favorite parts of the game. But like I said before, the game isn't perfect by any means. Some of the levels aren't the best, and but most of the levels are really good, and the world building and the charming and the exploration, it's honestly just a really, really good 3D platformer, and definitely amazing for an indie creators to make it. And it's definitely one of my favorite games, as it's number 29. Number 28. Now, a lot of people compared this to like the Dark Souls, or the 2D Dark Souls of co-op games, or the 2D Dark Souls of Boss Rush, or whatever it may be, as it was mainly known for its intense difficulty. Heck, even the game journalist couldn't even get past the tutorial level, and it was mainly famous for its difficulty, and it's also pretty famous though for its visuals as well. And that game is Cuphead. Now, Cuphead is a very interesting game, as it has like that 1920s type of animation to it, and I think it was all handmade animation, and everything was hand drawn, which is pretty crazy. And it kind of shows too, as everything is kind of like choppy and staticky, as kind of simulating how like TVs were in the 1920s or whatever. And it's just honestly an overall fun game. It's a fun co-op game that you can play with your friend, and you go through boss rushes pretty much as you fight a bunch of crazy bosses and crazy characters, and each with their own different attack patterns and attacks, and um, their own like phases as well. And there's also platforming levels as well, which are called the run and gun sections, and those you can collect coins, and you can collect those coins to use for your shop to buy items. And it's just overall just a fun game, and although it is difficult, it actually is good that it's difficult, as a lot of games that aren't really difficult and it doesn't really have a challenge. But Cuphead has a pretty good challenge, and it's pretty rewarding when you beat the said bosses or beat the said run and gun levels. And it's similar to Sekiro or Hollow Knight, where when you beat those bosses you feel satisfied. I also love the little the meter where when you die it shows you how far you got and how much you beat the boss, or how far you got through the run and gun section, and you're like, god damn, I was so close. And it's just like you have to be just a little bit more, you have to shoot a little bit more in order to beat him the next time, and you're able to use a lot of different weapons and items to use to your disposal to have a different gameplay style as well, which makes things fresh. And you're able to attack your enemy in multiple different ways, so that you can try different options to beat said boss or beat said run and gun level. And it's honestly just an overall fun time. And the only really bad thing about Cuphead is that it's short. Like, if you're actually really skillful at the game, you can beat the game in like 2 hours or even less, as speedrunners can even do it in under 30 minutes, which is crazy. But when you first play it, it will take a long time, and it is pretty rage inducing, as a lot of the bosses are pretty tough, especially towards the end. And you will be spending more than 2 hours probably your first time, as you'll be struggling with the bosses and stuff. But for a $25 game or $20 game, it's pretty good, and it's pretty worth it, as it's a pretty fun boss rush slash run and gun level, and has amazing co-op, and it's gonna get DLC soon, which hopefully will be just as good. Number 27. Now this was a bit of a hard decision to make, as I really enjoyed the Fire Emblem series, and I played most of the games and even beaten most of them as well, and I enjoyed, out of those games, a good amount of them. And it was a really hard decision whether to think Fire Emblem Three Houses was better or Echoes. And I think Echoes is just a little bit better than Fire Emblem Three Houses. Now the reason I think Echoes is a bit better than Three Houses is mainly because I don't think it's as repetitive as Three Houses, where Three Houses, if you want the full experience, you have to go through all 4 paths, and the first half of the game is pretty much the same, and you have to go through the first half of the game every time, which is 4 times, in order to really experience every route, which really only differs mainly from the second half of the game. And so I think Echoes kind of does it better in a case where it has 2 separate stories, being Celica and Alms, and then combining at the end, but there's no like repetitiveness of having to replay and go through the first part, which is kind of repetitive in Three Houses, that makes Echoes a bit better. I also enjoyed the characters both in Echoes and Three Houses, as both characters are really good. Story, I think the story's a little bit better in Echoes, as I found it more engaging somehow. Although it's not the best story, it still is really, really good. In Three Houses, although that had a really good story as well, and a very deep story and very sad story at times, it was, I didn't really feel like I was engaged as much. I didn't feel like it was the main drive point of continue playing. And although I did love the story of like Dimitri and Edelgard and Claude and all those guys, I really liked Echo's story as well. I also really liked how you didn't really have to bench anyone until like part 5, as since you had 2 separate teams, being Celica's team and Alm's team, you didn't really have to bench anyone, which my way, how I play Fire Emblem is I usually use the characters that are the lowest level, and I want to level them up so everyone's at an even playing field and at an even level, which is not the right way to play Fire Emblem. But with Echoes, you don't really have to do that, as you don't really have to bench anyone until part 5 when both teams pretty much connect, which I really liked. I also really liked the two separate stories, being and Celica, and seeing both of their sides and then reuniting after their childhood. And then I also just love the gameplay. The dungeons are really fun to explore and find treasure and go around and beat up bad guys and all that stuff, and leveling up and going to like the fountains and everything like that. The gameplay overall is just really fun, how your swords don't break or your weapons don't break, and you can equip different weapons and different items that can change up the gameplay here and there. And some items are even like overpowered, and there's like a smithy where you can create your own weapons, and it's overall just a really fun game. The only thing that I didn't really like was it can be repetitive at times, especially in the dungeons. There are sometimes a lot of enemies that you just have to keep fighting through, but most of the time I was having a blast and I was really engaged and continued playing hours on end. And honestly, it's just a really fun experience, really good story, great cast of characters, and just an overall really good Fire Emblem game. And that's why it's at number 27. Number 26. Now this is also a hard decision to make, as both Super Mario Galaxy 1 and Super Mario Galaxy 2 are really good. And although Super Mario Galaxy 1 I think has a better hub world, being the observatory, and introduced characters like Rosalina, which had a pretty cool backstory as well, I think Super Mario Galaxy 1 is really good, but I honestly like Super Mario Galaxy 2 just a bit better. Now, although Galaxy 1 is really good, I think Galaxy 2 just has better galaxies in my opinion. I love Galaxy 1's galaxies as well, but I think Galaxies 2 were just a little bit more in the fun factor, and although they were a bit more linear, I felt like they were just enjoyable and fun, and there was just a wide variety of different galaxies that were all fun to explore. Or I shouldn't say all, but most of them were fun to explore and go through. And even the boss battles too were pretty good. I love the atmosphere of both Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, as you have the spacey atmosphere. Although it's not as present in Super Mario Galaxy 2, it still is here and there. And it's absolutely stunning and beautiful, especially for the Wii era, as it was amazing to see those visuals on the Wii. I also really liked the replayability slash bonus content of playing as Luigi and finding those green stars. Although a lot of people found it annoying, I found like it was an Easter egg hunt trying to find and hunt down those green stars. I also just really like the gameplay, especially adding Yoshi and the new abilities like the Cloud Flower, allowing you to create your own platforms, or like the Red Pepper where Yoshi just goes extremely fast and you have to have lightning fast reaction times to be able to go the way you want to go. But honestly, like I said, the only thing that's bad about Super Mario Galaxy 2 is really the hub world and the story. I felt like the story in Galaxy 1 with Rosalina was a little bit better, and the hub world as well, being the observatory, was a bit better than Super Mario Galaxy 2. But like I said, I think the gameplay was better in Super Mario Galaxy 2, although it's very controversial. I think that it just was better and more fun, and that's just my opinion. Number 25. Now, the Metroid Prime trilogy is probably one of the best trilogies, if not the best trilogy in video game history, as Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 are amazing games. And if I were to put one game on the list, it would be the Metroid Prime trilogy, which is its own game, having all three games. But I decided to just go with one game instead, and that's Metroid Prime 3. Now, the reason I think Metroid Prime 3 is the best Metroid Prime game is really for its motion controls, gameplay, atmosphere, characters, and bosses, and there wasn't really as much backtracking. Where Metroid Prime 2 and 1, Metroid Prime 1, you had to backtrack to find the Chozo artifacts, and in Metroid Prime 2, you had to backtrack to find the Sky Temple keys, which was really annoying in those games, and kind of made them not really bad, but annoying parts, and parts I hate replaying and just playing in general, honestly. But Metroid Prime 3 didn't really have that. There wasn't as much backtracking, and you didn't have to backtrack to get to the final boss or to get to the final world or area or whatever it may be. Metroid Prime 3 didn't have that, which I loved. I also just loved the atmosphere of the different worlds, like the sky area, as well as like boss fights, like the Rundus boss fight, as well as just the bounty hunters in general, and getting to see them, and first being as a team, and then disbanding and fighting against each other because of the corruption. And honestly, it's just a lot of fun. I also love the like ship gameplay, where you're able to kind of use your ship and interact with it, and when you go into it, you're with your Wii remote pointing and kind of touching everything to see like what you can do, and even just calling your ship for backup to like shoot a wall or something like that. Even though it's like the smallest little things and it's not used as much, I think it's really cool to just see, honestly. And just the motion controls in general, as well as the new things that Metroid Prime 3 added, were just a lot of fun and cool to see. But yeah, honestly, Metroid Prime 3 is just a really good game. The only thing I didn't really like was the ending. Like where Metroid Prime 1 and 2, it was kind of worth it to get the Sky Temple keys and the Chozo artifacts, where you had epic boss fights like Meta Ridley, and you had Metroid Prime, and you had Dark Samus boss fight, or the boss fight before that, I forget its name, with like that quad enemy, I forget what its name is, but you have epic boss fights like that, which are really good. But the ending from Metroid Prime 3 I didn't think really held up to Metroid Prime 2 and 1, and it wasn't as good. But that's really the only downfall of Metroid Prime 3 in my opinion. As other than that, it's just a really fun Metroid Prime game and a really fun Metroid game in general. Like I said before, it's very atmospheric, very cool, and especially like boss fights, like when you're like one of the first boss fights being like you and Meta Ridley, and you're fighting and falling down into like the depth, and you're just pretty much beating each other up, even though you're falling to your death pretty much. And it's so epic and fun, and a great way to start the game, honestly. And overall though, like I said, great Metroid Prime game, and hopefully Metroid Prime 4 is just as good, but who knows when that'll come out. Number 24. Now this may come as a surprise to some people, as a lot of people think that this is the best game of all time, this is the best game on the Switch or the Wii U, and that this is the best open world game. But my number 24 picked is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now Breath of the Wild is really, really good, and deserving the 24 spot is really, really good. And I'm not saying Breath of the Wild is a bad game, I'm just saying it's not the best game of all time. I think it is really good at what it does, being an open world game, having so many different elements and so many new things to discover. I think it does really well in that department. Its gameplay is really fun, exploration as well, as they go hand in hand, as being just really just fun and addicting, and just like, oh, I want to go there, I want to go there, and anywhere you can really see, you can pretty much go, as long as you have enough stamina, and as long as you have like enough health and you don't die, pretty much. As whatever you see, you can go to. You can even go to Ganon's tower at the beginning of the game. It's just really crazy, and you can just do whatever, have whatever inventory you want, and go out and pretty much do anything, which is crazy and amazing, especially for a Legend of Zelda game. The only thing I didn't really like about it were its story and dungeon elements, as I don't think its dungeons were, although they were different and they did have some cool elements to them, I think they were not really the worst part of the game, but they're not as good as previous Legend of Zelda dungeons, there weren't that many puzzles to really solve. There was really just one concept. There wasn't any new item you'd get to solve any new puzzles to test out the new item like the Legend of Zelda gameplay usually have. And then the story as well wasn't really that good in my opinion, as it wasn't really that memorable. It wasn't really that dark, although there was voice acting and it was cool to see cutscenes and stuff like that. It wasn't really that good, especially the ending and the final boss of Ganon, and you're really just shooting light arrows and hitting its weak spot and it's done, especially the third phase, which that's really all you do. And it just kind of ends there, and there really isn't much else to it. And there is a good amount of replay value to it though, as you can really spend like 500 hours and still not discover everything. There's so many Korok seeds to find, and there's DLC, which the DLC is also really good, and there's so many items and quests to do and side quests and discover new little dungeons, and each dungeon you do, or the little huts, I forget what they were called, but whatever they were, the Sheikah little temples, if you completed 4 of them, you could either choose to upgrade your stamina or upgrade your hearts. And it was just honestly a really fun game, and a lot of people can agree on that. But like I said before, although it isn't really your typical Zelda game, which isn't really a bad thing to say, like there wasn't really like a good soundtrack like other Zelda games have, although it's just really kind of ambient noise. It wasn't really your typical Zelda game. There's no like instrument you play like the ocarina or whatever, and that's not really a bad thing. It's really just the story and the dungeons weren't as good as previous Zelda games, and in my opinion, which you'll see later on, is that this isn't actually my favorite Legend of Zelda game. Number 23. Now, although I really liked Resident Evil 2, it's not my favorite Resident Evil game, as my favorite Resident Evil game is Resident Evil 4. Now, I know this isn't probably a shocker to anyone, but yeah, the best Resident Evil game is Resident Evil 4, and I feel like a lot of people can agree with me on that. And although people do say that it's one of their favorite games of all time, I think it is still really good, and being just above Breath of the Wild is a really good spot to be, as I just find it Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 2 are both really good games, but I think Resident Evil 4 is just a bit better, as Resident Evil 4 has amazing atmosphere. Every chapter has something new and exciting. Its exploration is really fun. You find new treasure, and you can use that treasure to either combine and get new stuff and sell for even more money, and you can buy weapons, and you can buy ammo, and you can buy items, and you can really make your own arsenal, which is something you couldn't do in any other Resident Evil game. It also had that fear factor of just like not really knowing what's to happen next, as like I said before, every chapter had something new and exciting, and there wasn't really any boring segments. Everything was coming at you, and you go to here and there, and you're just everywhere, honestly. And you have giant fish, and you have giant monsters, and all this other crazy stuff that happens, and you don't know what's going to happen next, which adds to the fear of just like what's going on. You're just scared of the next enemy that you're going to encounter, and it's just an amazing adventure, and just honestly just an amazing game. The only things that I found bad about it was just escorting Ashley, which was a bit annoying, but it was understandable. And then the quick time events here and there, where you'll just be watching a cutscene and then you have to press A and B, or rapidly press the A button, and you don't even know sometimes whether it's a cutscene that you can just sit back and kind of enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the story that's unfolding, or be scared by something. It's really, you have to also be on your toes and have and be able to react to a quick time event, which I found a bit annoying. But again, both of those things are kind of understandable for the game, and it's overall just a really fun game, especially on the Wii with the pointer controls. Very immersive, and I love that version. And I can't wait for the VR version, which is going to come out on the Oculus Quest 2, which looks pretty good so far and might even change my opinion about the game. Number 22. Now, this game might just be from nostalgia, honestly, as this was pretty much the first game that I played slash beat, as it was my first 3D game, and if you don't count the Leapster, it was my first game, and that is Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal. Now, although this game is a big part of my childhood, and I spent over probably hundreds of hours into this game, it still is a really good game. And although like a lot of people, their first game is not one of their favorite games, and looking back at it, it's not a good game, but Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, playing it over and over again, it's still really fun and really good, and I definitely think it does deserve its spot at number 22. And although it is linear and it's not as exploration based as the other Ratchet and Clank games of finding all these hidden collectibles and doing a bunch of side quests and stuff like that, Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal is still really fun and is my favorite Ratchet and Clank, as the gameplay is really fun, the weapons are really cool and really useful and even wacky and weird, like the Quack-O-Matic or other weapons that are just crazy and just like destructive, and honestly just a ton of fun to experiment with. The worlds are also really fun, although some of them can be very linear. A lot of them are really fun to explore and to find those golden or those giant bolts, as well as to do like the achievements or whatever to get skill points. It's a lot of fun. There's also a lot of content being side content, like Annihilation Nation, or doing the Quark missions, or doing the training missions with Helga. There's a lot to do in this game, as I spent over hundreds of hours, and I 100% completed the game and had a ton of fun just going through and playing and just shooting up bad guys and leveling up weapons and all this crazy stuff that I absolutely love about this game. I also just really love the story and humor, as Ratchet and Clank is just an overall funny game with characters like Quark and even Ratchet and Clank and Helga and a bunch of other characters as well. I even remember like some side content as well, being the sewer crystals and being scared of going in there, because I always was scared of like not knowing the way back, even though I didn't know that you could just kind of leave pretty much. And just honestly, it was just overall a fun experience, from playing it as a kid to even playing it now as an adult. It's just a really fun game and just an overall fun experience with a lot of humor that pretty much I think made me the way I am today, as a lot of the humor in this game is kind of the humor that I use for my jokes as well, as there's a lot of funny jokes in here and I even quote them sometimes, as it's just overall a funny game, and it pretty much was the high point of Ratchet and Clank humor. Number 21. Now, like I've said before, I'm a really big fan of rhythm games, and like you've seen in the previous games on my list, I love Beat Saber, I love Pistol Whip, I love even Thumper was an honorable mention. There is a lot of great rhythm games, and one of my favorites, not the best, but one of my favorites, the second best rhythm game, in my opinion, is Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix. Now, if you haven't seen my review of Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, I highly recommend it, as when I did that review, that was when I played the game fresh and it was fresh in my head, and it's a really good review. I really go over everything of how much I love this game, as it's a mashup of all three Rhythm Heaven games, being Rhythm Heaven for the Game Boy, Rhythm Heaven for the DS, and Rhythm Heaven Fever for the Wii, adding all the best of all three of those games and new levels as well. And it's just so fun, so addicting, and just the music, the challenges, everything is just so good. And I love everything about it. The remixes are really good, the new levels are really good, the ones that they picked that the best of each game are really good. It's honestly just everything is there. There's really nothing wrong with the game except they did try to put a story into Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, which isn't the best, but then again, a rhythm game doesn't really need a story. And although they tried to put a story in, and it's not really the best story, um, it's just there, and you can just kind of ignore it and just continue playing the music and jamming out. It's there, but you can just ignore it. Anyway, though, Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, really fun game, really addicting, and I love coming back to it here time and time again to just play through it, get new high scores, try and beat challenges as well, because some of the challenges are really tough, being the challenge train, and really adds to the replay value as there's a bunch of different challenges to do, and they're really tough, and you get rewarded for them, and you can use those rewards to get even more levels to play, being the levels from the 3 games that weren't included in the base game pretty much, and you get to play those. The only thing that I didn't really like also was that there wasn't really a fast tempo remix, as each game, it was usually remix 8 for both DS and Rhythm Heaven Fever. There was remix 8, which increased the tempo of the levels and was kind of a fast-paced remix. Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix didn't really have that, but it did make up for it with the challenges, as some of the challenges increased the tempo, which was really cool and added to the challenge. And there was multiple different types of challenges as well, not just adding to the tempo. You had to get like a certain score, or you had to get a certain amount of perfects, or you had to get you couldn't miss a certain amount of shots, or beats I should say. And then there's like one where you had to get you couldn't get the screen be eaten by a monster or whatever. You had to get a bunch of perfects in order to keep the monster from eating your screen or whatever. And there's just weird and wacky little mini games like that that just add charm to it and just make the game so fun and so rhythm based. And you'll be tapping your feet or tapping the button, tapping the A button or tapping the touchscreen to the beat of the rhythm, and it's just so fun and so immersive that you're pretty much in the song and doing the beats of the song, and it's just an overall amazing game. And that is it. So that is my picks for my top 100 games list, games 30 through 21. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and stay tuned for next week where we'll be doing games 20 to 11. And then the week after, we got our top 10. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for other things right here on Until Nick. Bye.